Art. Thank you, folks. We're going to call the meeting to order because we have a quorum. Hi, how are you? Good. Today's this is the Commission on Chicago Landmarks regular meeting. Today's date is April 3rd, 2025. I'll call the meeting to order with the roll call of commission members. Vice Chair Commissioner Jackowitz. Here. Commissioner Boatwright. Here. Commissioner Burns. Commissioner Ponce is on her way. Commissioner Tolliver. And I am Commissioner Wong. We do have a quorum. I'd like to ask anyone wishing to make a statement in today's agenda to complete a public comment card and give the card to a member of the staff. Comment cards are available at the door. As a courtesy to other individuals wishing to offer comments, we ask that members of the general public limit your statements to 3 minutes or less. When the time comes for public comment on the individual item on the agenda, I will call the names from the cards and ask you to come forward to the microphone to make your statement. Please state your name and interest, organization or company you represent, if any. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting from March 6, 2025. Those minutes were included in your packages. If there's no other discussion, I'd like to request a motion to approve those minutes. Yes.
Under 4, blank, should have something that just reflects that we didn't cover that topic.
Good catch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Item 4.
Or just say see the item above because I think it covers both.
Oh, yes. Oh, it should, yeah. If we could add that in, that see the comment above.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Burns. With that in mind. Eagle eye, that's great. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved, Commissioner
change.
Burns, with that change. And a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the final landmark recommendation for the Morningstar Baptist Church of Chicago, located at 3993 South Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive in the 3rd Ward. And Matt, this is yours.
Thank you, Chairman, and members of the Commission. In January, remember that you initiated landmark designation for this building, the Morningstar Baptist Church of Chicago. The congregation actually suggested landmark designation to your program committee, and they've been in full support of this landmark designation. We received their written consent, which is a standard part of the landmark designation process. We received that in March, so you can now consider a final landmark recommendation to City Council. It's at 3993 South King Drive in the 3rd Ward, and Alderwoman Dowell is in full support of landmarking as well. Here's a closer view showing the building situation on the landscaped King Drive, which is part of the city's park and boulevard system. It's in the Grand Boulevard community area and the historic Bronzeville neighborhood, which is a big part of its history. We believe the building has a lot to say about history and architecture, and you agreed in your preliminary recommendation in January. You felt that the building meets criterion 1 for heritage, specifically to the African-American experience in Bronzeville, and criterion 3 for significant people, specifically some of the congregation's leaders over time. And criterion 4 for architecture. It's really a unique building that has evolved over time. And finally, criterion 5 for several of the architects that contributed to that evolution. Morning Star was established by 25 African Americans who had migrated from the South to Chicago in 1917. The heritage of Morning Star is really interwoven with the Great Migration, which transformed Chicago's political, cultural, and artistic landscape. The founding members of the congregation were led by a pastor, Edmund Hubbard, and in its early days, it met in a rented building at 3800 South Vincennes. No photo exists of that building, but it was right next to Aldine Square, shown here. After 2 years of growth, the congregation was able to purchase the Vincennes property. During Pastor Hubbard's leadership, Morning Star supported the Chicago Urban League by providing clothing, meals, and shelter to those in need. Hubbard also supported the United Negro Improvement Association, or the UNIA, an international African nationalist organization founded by Marcus Garvey in 1914. This announcement was for a lecture at Morning Star by J.W.H. Eason, a leader of the UNIA. Morning Star also hosted the Black Cross Nurses of the UNIA. Formed in 1920, the organization offered African American women training in nursing to improve public health. In 1922, Pastor Hubbard left Morning Star for mission work in Africa. He was succeeded by Ira Hendon, who would remain at the helm for 26 years. A year into his pastorship, the congregation paid off their mortgage for the first church at Vincennes, yet any sense of stability was short-lived. For in 1936, the federal government began to clear land in Bronzeville for the IDB Wells homes of the Chicago Housing Authority. Morning Star's first church on Vincennes was seized through eminent domain. Undeterred, the congregation purchased a building at 3993 South King Drive, then known as South Parkway, where Morning Star still stands. The building was originally constructed as an automobile and truck garage. Despite the hardship of the Depression, remember this is 1936, the congregation purchased the building and transformed it into a place of worship. The renovation that began in 1937 was completed in 1939. For that renovation, Morning Star hired architect Walter Thomas Bailey, the first African-American architect registered in Illinois. After earning his degree in architecture from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Booker T. Washington recruited Bailey to the Tuskegee Institute to lead its mechanical industries department and to supervise planning and architecture on the campus. In 1916, Bailey left Tuskegee to open his own architectural practice in Memphis, Tennessee, where he contacted the Knights of Pythias, an African-American fraternal organization, which became an important client for Bailey. For them, in 1914, Bailey designed the Pythian Hotel and Bathhouse in Hot Springs National Park, Arkansas. Another really important commission for Bailey was this building. It was the Pythians' temple in Bronzeville that was completed in 1925. It no longer survives, but it was an impressive 8-story building which housed the organization's offices, meeting halls, and as well as rental offices. At the time of its construction, the $1 million building was regarded as the largest structure financed, designed, and built by African Americans. This commission also prompted Bailey to relocate to Chicago. Like I said, the building no longer survives, but fragments are on display in the Art Institute of Chicago, including this Egyptian relief from the building. In addition to Morning Star, Bailey was the architect of the first Church of Deliverance in 1939. A streamlined, modern building that was also initially an industrial building and now a Chicago landmark. No discussion of Morning Star would be complete without a mention of gospel music. In addition to Sunday service, the church hosted gospel events featuring well-known performers throughout its history. One of the most significant contributions of the church to gospel was the Barrett sisters, who grew up singing at Morning Star as kids. The Barrett sisters founded their own group in 1950, launching a very long and productive career that included tours, international tours, and vinyl pressings. After moving into the new church in 1937, Reverend Hendon continued to grow the congregation until he died in 1958. He was succeeded by this gentleman, Reverend Dr. Luke Mingo. Mingo was active in ecumenical groups, and he was also very active in a group called the South Central Alliance, an organization that rehabbed housing to prevent the community from becoming a target of urban renewal. Mingo is also a visionary. It was under his pastorship that the congregation undertook a massive renovation that transformed the building in the 1960s. And this is the result. This is the front facade was completely rebuilt with new structural piers clad in a smooth limestone, giving the facade a regular structural expression and verticality. And then you have these large slab glass windows, stained glass windows, which are called dalle de verre, set in these pointed arch openings that convey the building's ecumenical function. This detail shows land and stone cladding on the recessed portions of the wall, which adds the facade some texture. Interesting feature between the tops of the piers, these brise soleil that kind of unify the facade horizontally. In addition to the new front on the exterior, the 1960s renovation completely transformed the interior. This view is inside the entrance doors. You see you have this double height vestibule with this really dense and rich blue provided by the slab glass windows. And then you have this very modern welded steel stairways that lead up to this mezzanine. Behind the photographer, there is a fellowship hall, and you can see very modern light fixtures designed for the renovation. This is the sanctuary. Central aisle, pretty standard, central aisle flanked by banks of pews. The ceiling above the aisle is recessed to add a sense of height, and you've got cove lighting there. And these really remarkable columns in the sanctuary with these very slender shafts to maximize views and flared capitals. This is done in plaster, and that requires a very high degree of craftsmanship. The recessed circles in the ceiling with the pendant light fixtures from the renovation. The 1960s transformation of Morning Star was designed by the African-American architectural firm of Hunter, Cone, and Duster and Associates. It was established by Radcliffe Hunter, who earned degrees in architecture and interior design from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. In addition to Morning Star, Hunter also designed this building, the St. Thomas Episcopal Church at 38th and Wabash in 1977. For the Morning Star Commission, Hunter was joined by architect Charles Duster, who was at the time employed by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. It appears Duster did the Morning Star Commission apart from his work at SOM and likely donated his services. Duster was the grandson of renowned journalist and civil rights activist Ida B. Wells and her lawyer husband, Ferdinand Lee Barnett. He studied architectural engineering at U of I and graduated in 1954. 2 years after graduation, he began a very long and productive career at SOM, a firm that was a Chicago firm that was leading the modern movement in architecture. The rise of SOM corresponded with the rise of American corporations, which SOM served. At the firm, Duster contributed to dozens of prominent projects, such as this office and training center for the United Airlines in Elk Grove, and this sprawling corporate campus for Upjohn Pharmaceuticals from 1961. While SOM was a powerhouse in corporate work, Duster worked closely with Walter Netsch of the firm, who had established a kind of niche or boutique at SOM that focused on planning academic work, museums, and housing. Duster was part of the team that designed this research facility at U of C and the master plan for the University of Illinois Circle campus. In terms of integrity, your January vote confirmed that Morningstar meets this criterion. While the building obviously has undergone massive transformation since its original construction, these changes, particularly the 1963 to 1968 renovation, are historically significant in their own right. And the congregation has done a wonderful job maintaining the building since these renovations were complete more than a half century ago. So to conclude, I wanted to thank the congregation, Reverend Dr. Barlow, who leads that congregation, for supporting preservation of this building. They've taken wonderful care of it, and they understand its importance, and they've shared that with the city. Your preliminary recommendation for significant features is one that we would continue to support. That would be all exterior elevations, including roof lines of the building. And then on the interior, the first floor entrance vestibule, including those stairways which we saw earlier, and as well as the main worship space of the sanctuary. Because this is a active worship space, we wanted to make sure that certain elements, physical elements related to worship, were not included in the interior. So that would be things like the baptistry, the pulpit, pews, and the organ. So that's your final recommendation before you. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Does the commission have any questions for Matt? I'd also like to recognize that Commissioner Ponce has joined us for the record. The owner or the applicant is asked not to speak on this matter, and but thanks the commissioners are in favor of this. I'll call in public comments now. Ward Miller.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Ward Miller, Richard H. Driehaus, Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. We are very much in support of the Chicago Landmark designation and recognition of Morningstar Baptist Church of Chicago, and support this effort. It's wonderful to see so many churches in Bronzeville and houses of worship being recognized, this one being a mid-century modern church. We have very few of these that are known for their architecture and their cultural and their history. And then to have a mid-century building with an African-American architect is really remarkable. And to recognize that and to designate it a landmark is very important to us. Our landmarks are beginning to really represent the city in which we live in, with the cultural backing of so many ethnic groups, and to honor these ethnic groups, and specifically in the Bronzeville community, where we're beginning to have more and more landmarks. This is really an important designation. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ward. Nobody else has signed up to speak. Unless if you have any further discussion, I'd like to request a motion to adopt the final landmark recommendation to City Council for the Morningstar Baptist Church of Chicago. So moved by Commissioner Tolliver. Second? Second, Commissioner Boatright. I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Jekowitz, Commissioner Burns, Commissioner Ponce. And I am a yes. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the final landmark recommendation for the Harris Trust and Savings Bank, located at 111 West Monroe Street in the 34th Ward. And Matt, this is you as well.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the Commission. In September of 2024, you initiated landmark designation of the former headquarters of the Harris Trust and Savings Bank, shown here. And then just last month, you reviewed the proposed rehabilitation of the building and recommended approval of a Class L incentive for it. And then since that meeting, the owner has formally consented to landmark designation, so you may now consider a final recommendation to council. The building is really a work in two distinct parts, which I'll discuss separately in the presentation. But in the center of this photo, you've got the 1911 original Harris Bank building, and then to the left is what's known as the East Tower, which was a 23-story international style addition constructed in 1960 by the bank and for its offices. As part of the LaSalle Street Reimagined initiative, these buildings will be converted into mixed-income residential and hotel building. Obviously, we're in the loop at 111 West Monroe. Alderman Conway is expressed full support for landmarking. A closer view showing the property's two connected buildings at the corner of Monroe and Clark. Your preliminary findings found that the two buildings together meet the heritage criterion, or criterion number 1, for the financial institution that built it. That institution was founded in 1883 in Chicago by a young man named Norman Waite Harris. It was a small investment bank that specialized in municipal bonds. The establishment of new cities in the Midwest in the late 19th century created a really profitable market for municipal bonds. So this was one of several institutions in Chicago that took advantage of that. As the institution grew, it incorporated, and in 1907, it was selling about $70 million worth of bonds per year. And so that allowed them in 1909 to begin construction of the 1911 tower. They commissioned Shepley, Rutan, and Coolidge, a really important Chicago architectural firm, to design a 20-story bank building, which was completed in 1911 and shown here. Harris Bank was one of several financial institutions in Chicago, and most of them located their headquarter banks on LaSalle or near, on the side streets near to LaSalle, particularly to be close to the Federal Reserve. These are two comparable examples that have already been landmarked. Your September findings indicated that the 1911 building also meets criterion 4 for architecture. When it was completed, Harris Bank occupied the double-height first floor and the basement, with the upper floors of the tower being income for rental office space. Only the north elevation facing Monroe is treated, as it's the only one that's not obscured by neighboring buildings. Here, the architects employed a tripartite facade arrangement with a colonnade at the base, a smooth shaft in the middle, and a terracotta cornice at the top. This is a view of the colonnade, giant order columns in polished granite. And where the building lands at the street level, you've got these really deeply recessed doorways that kind of convey the massive quality of the building and security, which was so important for banks. And you have these two bronze sculptural panels at the facade. These were lions that became kind of the marketing symbol of Harris Bank. I was not able to identify the sculptor, but they were cast in Boston by the T.F. McGann and Company. You also found that the 1911 portion of the building meets criterion 5 for its architects, Shepley, Rutan, and Coolidge. They were formed under the Boston architect Henry Hobson Richardson, who was known for his use of the Romanesque revival style. Shepley, Rutan, and Coolidge, however, turned away from the Romanesque and embraced classical design that is seen in one of their early Chicago commissions, the Art Institute, which was built in 1893. They also designed the city's Beaux-Arts Public Library, now the Cultural Center, which are, really, really fine historic interiors, the Preston Bradley and GAR halls. And then another designated landmark by the firm, this was the Chicago Orphan Asylum, now the Baptist Institute of Chicago from 1898. The firm also designed important buildings for University of Chicago, including these two, the Ida Noyes Hall and Mandel Hall, all collegiate Gothic that dominates the campus. With regards to the 1960 edition, known as the East Tower, your September vote found that it meets criterion 4. Harris was one of the few banks that survived the Great Depression unscathed, and so then after World War II, the company continued to grow and became one of Chicago's leading banks. To expand its operation, a new building was constructed. This is the East Tower, adjacent to the historic 1911 bank. And this was needed as by this time the staff of the bank had grown to 2,000 employees. You can see how it's connected to the historic building. All floor levels are aligned, and you have a nice kind of gap between the modernist building and the historic building, which is a nice visual that doesn't overwhelm. Very fine example of the international style. You've got flat wall surfaces, very orthogonal, clearly expressed structure, no historic ornament. For the East Tower, you found that its architects too were significant. The bank in 1960 turned to another important firm, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, with partner Walter Netsch leading the project. This commission this body, the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, recently recognized the significance of Walter Netsch when it designated his home and studio in Old Town. As a partner at SOM, Netsch developed the conceptual design for the Inland Steel building, which was completed in 1957, one of the first international style buildings in Chicago. And you can see a lot of similarities between Inland Steel and what happened at Harris Bank. Of course, SOM made huge contributions to the city and the world in terms of the modern movement in architecture. Two important designs, obviously, the Hancock Building from 1969 and the Sears Tower from 1973. In terms of integrity, you found that the Harris Bank and its 1960 edition have excellent integrity. Obviously, as a major financial institution, they had the resources to maintain this building really well. And you could see that there were very few changes. As noted earlier, the owner of the building, 111 West Monroe, an affiliate of Prime Group and Capri Interests, has formally consented to landmark designation. As I noted, Alderman Conway of the 34th Ward is also in support. The significant features that you've recommended in September, we recommend that those continue to be, as stated, all exterior elevations of the 1911 and 1960 building, as well as the bas-relief lion sculptures on the front facade. So you have a final recommendation to that effect, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Does the commission have any questions for Matt at this time? Seeing none, is the applicant here? And do they want to,
Yes.
would you all like to make a statement? Not yet. In a minute. Asking for the applicant. 111.
Hello, everyone. I'm Janet Stengel on behalf of the applicant. We're here to answer any questions. Thank you for your support for this building, and we're excited for the project. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, public comments. Ward, you're up.
Commissioners, for the record, Ward Miller, the Richard H. Driehaus Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. We very much support this designation of really two buildings here, one from 1911, one from 1960, 1958, 59. These are both remarkable buildings that were really a commitment to LaSalle Street when you think about it. And it's wonderful that they're being rethought as part of the LaSalle Street Reimagined, LaSalle Street Revision project. The 1911 building was really significant and a great contribution to reinforcing the financial district. And the 1950s building did that same thing 40 years later. When I was a kid, the Harris Bank would give out these little brass banks that were modeled after the bas-reliefs of the lions at the base of the building. And they were just as significant to the city of Chicago and a symbol of LaSalle Street as the lions are in front of the Art Institute of Chicago or the clocks at Marshall Field, now Macy's. So it's really important to recognize this great history. Two wonderful buildings, actually at one time, three wonderful buildings, as the state of Illinois took the one to the far right in this image. So three great buildings all in a row. When BMO decided to move to the West Loop, we were concerned about these structures enough to consider them as one of our Chicago 7 most endangered buildings a number of years ago. Now the Capri Capital and the Prime Group and Mike Reschke have all come together to revision these buildings. We're very much supportive of this designation and really welcome it. And I just want to say to anybody who's been to the top of the 1950s building, there is a one-story open courtyard in stainless steel and green marble that resembles a Barcelona pavilion in Barcelona, Spain, that was originally designed by Mies van der Rohe. And remember that building was demolished after the fair, but this building built in the 50s tried to recreate the semblance of that beautiful green marble lined courtyard. And if you ever get up there, it's called the Monroe Club. That's a significant feature that the ownership wants to keep. Just wanted to share that with all of you. Thank you so much. And we really support this in a huge way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ward. Nobody else has signed up to speak in this matter. Therefore, unless there's further discussion, I'd like to request a motion to adopt the final landmark recommendation to City Council for the Harris Trust and Savings Bank, moved by Commissioner Tolliver. Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Burns. Do the roll call. Commissioner Jekowitz, Commissioner Boatright, Commissioner Ponce. And I am a yes as well. The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Permit Review Committee reports, and I'll call in Commissioner Jekowitz.
The Permit Review Committee reviewed 4 projects at its March 6th, 2025 meeting. All 4 projects were approved with conditions, and the report summarizing the scope of the proposed project and the committee's decisions was included in your packets. This report is for your information and for the record.
Thank you. Emily?
For the month of March, staff approved 144 permit applications. A total of 174 reviews were performed by staff, and the average number of days to issue approval or corrections was 4.5 days.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on any of those items? Next item is the announcement of the Chicago 2025 Preservation Expo on May 19th. It's a Monday from 4 to 8 o'clock p.m. in the Chicago Cultural Center located at 78 East Washington Street. This includes the 25th edition of the Preservation Excellence Awards. Free tickets will be available for the public at 10 a.m. on Friday, March 14th. For additional information, log on to chicago.gov/preservation-month. And no further business. I'd like to request a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second, Commissioner Tolliver. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Commissioner Beckwith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Good to see you. Yeah.